Infinix Zero X Pro Review. Affordable phone that gives you a 120Hz OLED display. A strong camera system and a fine display make for a good start, but the Infinix Zero X Pro is held back against rivals due to its questionable stamina, terrible fingerprint sensor, and cluttered software. Infinix is one of the lesser-known smartphone brands out there, at least here in the West. But the Hong Kong-based manufacturer has actually been in the game since 2013. The Infinix Zero X Pro could well mark the company's most advanced smartphone yet, thanks to an eye-catching 108MP camera setup, impressively speedy charging, and a fluid 120Hz AMOLED display. With global pricing starting from $319 approximately £230/Euro 270, it's clearly looking to take the fight to the Pocos and Redmis of this world. Unfortunately, lingering hardware and software quirks hamper the Infinix Zero X Pro's chances of really cutting through. Despite its Pro name, there's no doubting that the Infinix Zero X Pro is an affordable phone when you get hold of it. From its all-plastic construction to the off-puttingly reflective selfie camera, there's nothing much here that screams premium. That even extends to the rear glass effect panel, which has been finished with an odd glittering effect that sparkles when held at an angle. In the nebula black of our test handset, it put me in mind of a kitchen worktop. It certainly helps this otherwise plain phone stand out, but it also looks a little cheap. This is a well-proportioned handset, however. At 164.1 x 75.7 x 7.8 mm, the Zero X Pro hits that just so mark, and with a weight of 193g it also narrowly stays on the right side of heavy. The shiny plastic rim of the phone has been partially flattened out. We're not talking iPhone 13 levels of abruptness here, but it's certainly more defined than your average blandly rounded budget phone. The Infinix Zero X Pro features the 6.67-inch AMOLED display with a 1080x2400 resolution. It's very similar to the Redmi Note 10 Pro in that way, which isn't bad company to be in at all. Also, like the Note 10 Pro, you get a speedy 120Hz refresh rate. You'll get an auto-switch refresh rate by default, but it only takes a brief trip to the settings menu to force 120Hz on all the time. The Infinix Zero X Pro isn't a pro performer, but it's a solid runner, despite a slightly convoluted setup. It comes with either 128GB or 256GB of internal storage, with a microSD slot as an added bonus. We've seen the Mediatek Helio G95 before in the Realme 8, the Realme 7, and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10s. Not only are these phones all in the affordable category, one of them launched back in 2020. This is a chip that's been around the block, built using an old 12nm process. There are a couple of quirks, as a result, not least of which is a complete lack of 5G support. Infinix has outfitted the Zero X Pro with a solid triple camera system, and there's a commendable lack of the usual depth and macro sensor bloat here. There's no doubting which camera is the star here, though. The main camera packs a 108MP f/1.8 wide sensor with both PDAF, phase detection autofocus, and OIS, optical image stabilization. This would appear to be the Samsung ISOCELL HM2 that we've seen perform so well in the Realme 8 Pro and the Redmi Note 10 Pro. We're looking at a strong entry-level to mid-range performer, with relatively accurate colors and plenty of detail. Dynamic range is solid, though I did spot a few blown-out clouds on some of my city shots. The weak point here is the ultra-wide sensor. The shift in tone and quality is quite jarring, from the cool, crisp clarity of the main sensor to a soft, slightly sickly green hue. The Infinix Zero X Pro has a reasonably healthy 4,500 mAh battery, but it doesn't result in great stamina when things get tough. With a score of just 7 hours and 42 minutes in the PC Mark Work 3.0 battery test, it's one of the worst performers we've seen. To place that in some context, the Redmi Note 10 Pro scored 1053, and the Poco X3 NFC scored 1424. Could this bad battery performance be down to the 12nm Helio G95? Not entirely. The Realme 8 scored 1036, while the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10s scored 1319, both using the same chip. Most cheaper Android phones of this sort stumble, if not fall flat on their face, over software, and the Infinix Zero X Pro doesn't exactly rip up the form book on this front. It runs on Android 11 with a custom UI known as XOS 7.6. The latter is reasonably smooth and legible, but ultimately I came back to the same old thought: why couldn't they just leave Android alone? The Infinix Zero X Pro starts from $319, approximately £230/Euro 270, for 128GB of storage. Alternatively, you can get 256GB of storage for $349, approximately £250/Euro 295. As that pricing suggests, we don't have details on a UK rollout at the time of writing. We'll update the review as and when we do, but be aware that Infinix representatives have stated that pricing could vary significantly by region. In fact, it doesn't appear to be on sale anywhere online at the time of writing. Not from the official store. The buy button is to find physical stores, or retailers like AliExpress, Geek Buying, and Gearbest, which typically stock just about every phone under the sun.